Hello everyone and welcome. My name is Noelle, and in this video I'll be sharing my painting process for this botanical garden in Malaga, Spain. This process begins with a bit of sketchbook practice to plan how I should approach the piece. Here I can test out the different colors and techniques I should use to get the look I want. What you are watching is basically a simplified version of my finished painting, and I will always recommend trying some sort of practice painting before starting a larger art project. I ended up using a palette of about 7 paints, which consisted of 4 different greens and a rough primary triad. The painting I'll be working on is 6 by 8 inches and taped down with a 1/2 inch border. Smaller paintings are less intimidating to me, so that makes it easier for me to sit down and start a piece, although I am trying to push myself to paint a little bigger now. I like to start my paintings with the lightest values first and then gradually add more pigmented mixtures as the piece progresses. It is easier to layer on top of or next to light areas rather than highly pigmented areas because the paint won't lift or spread into the new layer as easily, which causes a mess. For this piece, that means working from the back to the front by painting the sky, distant land, and the light gray pool edge first. I then moved on to painting this beautiful structure called the Mirador. I was going to wait on painting this until later, but then I realized it would really help to get the basic shapes down so I can clearly see where all of the edges would be. By doing this, I could paint the trees around it without cutting off an important detail that I didn't see. The colors I'm using for the Mirador are Magenta Mission Gold's Yellow Ochre No. 1, Red Brown, and Cerulean Blue, although the pigment used for this paint is commonly known as phthalo blue. The first layer on the brushes and trees is my base color representing the color the foliage gives off in the sun, and the next layer of paint will be for the shadows. I specifically chose this reference for this piece because the shapes of the plants are very simple, and I felt that it was a good place to start if I wanted to dabble in painting foliage. If you watched my last video, you would be familiar with my current exploration of painting with the color green. This piece is a continuation of that idea, and I plan on painting more greenery in the future as well. I then moved on to begin painting the reflection in the water and followed the same process that I used for the sky, since I'm just mirroring the same image essentially. When painting the shadows, I mixed a dark muddy green that was a bit on the cooler side, and I made a lot of short brush strokes and stippling motions to imitate the detail on the plants. As someone who is learning, my reference photo, which you can find linked in the description, was very helpful in showing me where the shadows should be placed. I'm using this as a study to observe the textures and details where shadows and highlights occur. To make each plant distinct, I found that it is effective to add variation to the types of colors and brushstrokes that I use. To paint the rim of the pool, I mixed a dark, cool color for the shade and a slightly warmer color for the areas in the sun. The inside edge of the pool was less clean than the horizontal rim, so that is why this area is darker and includes more detail. The distant hill was painted with a neutral warm green color, and because it is far away, there will be less contrast than in the foreground. This means that the darks are going to appear lighter, and the highlights will appear a little darker than if there were no haze. Now that I had a feeling for the value range for this piece, I continued working on the mirador and adding to the shadows and some details, but I still won't be finished with it until later. Moving back to painting the reflection on the water, I kept in mind the idea that the light reflecting from the water will be a little darker in value than the area above it. The water in my reference photo is pretty calm, but there are a few ripples that occur. To paint the ripples, I made sure to paint with a lot of short horizontal brush strokes and allowing the strokes to bleed into other shapes as well. Reflections don't always have to be perfect copies of what you see above. Water often causes a distortion, and depending on the angle of which the water is being viewed, some objects you see above the waterline will not be visible. I hope you enjoyed watching this video. If you did, consider giving me a thumbs up or subscribing to my channel. If you want to know what art supplies I am using, I will list them in the description below. You can also find me on my social media. I am the most active on my Instagram. Thank you so much for watching and make it a great day.